Let's come back to the beginning now for a minute. Let's go back to 1966, when this whole thing got started. The suggestion is that your father hit on a good gimmick. You're always accusing the church of being hypocritical and using gimmicks, but it seems to me that your father hit on a very good gimmick. And then there was a lot of showmanship involved. I mean, nudes on altars and satanic ceremonies. How sincere was the beginning of the church? How sincere?
It was quite sincere. There had to be public attention to pave the way for Satanism to be a recognized and above-board religion, as it had never been before. So there had to be public attention. You don't have a movement without moving.
And the archetype of the devil has always been as a showman.
And he always admitted that.
All artists, anyone who has a creative way of attracting attention has always been accused of having diabolical powers.
Now, but what I find interesting is, although many people like yourself might think that he was only doing it as for gimmick's sake and because he was a good showman, you also complain that he won't come and be on your show.
Yeah.
So now, which is it? Would you rather have him be a good showman and come on your show?
Well, why doesn't he come out of the closet?
He's not in a closet. He's living his life happily.
But he is not, I mean, he is fronting an organization.
Listen, he came out of the closet in 1966, and everybody else could come out of the closet.
But excuse me, but he is not making his views, his doctrines, his beliefs.
His views and doctrines are available in the Satanic Bible.
He's not making them open to the objective inquiry of the press, of journalists, of anyone. No, he's not. I mean, you are speaking for him, but he does not put himself on the line to defend what he believes.
He's past that point.
He no longer has the need to speak to the media in that fashion, and certainly the Christian media is a dying force.
And he's living his life.
Wait. The Christian media is a dying force?
The Christian media is now going through its last very extravagant death throes. Jim and Tammy Baker,
where do you get these statistics from?
All of the evangelists are slowly falling out of favor. And as we move into the Satanic century, we're going to see Christianity's last gasp.
Well, now hang on. Excuse me just a minute, Nikolas. You make some broad, sweeping statements that do not have statistical validation. Now, while it is true that certain televangelists have had a marked drop in their audiences, overall, the growth of religious media in America is exploding. Can you quote me any statistics in regards to religious radio stations and religious television stations?
Much more.
Do you know how fast they are growing in this country?
There's much more religious media than ever. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that's a sign of the death throes of Christianity. You've given up your ideals, and now you're joining the devil's ranks, which is to entertain people. You are now part of the media, which is something that the fictional character you base your religion on, Jesus Christ, would certainly not have condoned.
Well, now
you're now using...
Nikolas, you throw so many, I don't want to interrupt you, I want to be polite, but you throw so many little zingers out that are just factually inaccurate. I do have to call you. You just casually say this fictional character, you completely disregard the historicity of Christ.
Welcome home, beloved of God. Welcome to a place where sin and Satan cannot enter. Welcome to a place where death cannot come. Welcome to a place where loneliness is never felt. Welcome to
Mondo Diablo. Hello again, and welcome to yet another Mondo Diablo. Satanists are atheists. So, does that mean atheists are Satanists? Well, yes and no. Some atheists are Satanists, just as some atheists are Buddhists or subgenius, or all three. Today, Bob Larson, that representer of reason, that pusher of prudence, that witness for wisdom, interviews Zeena LaVey and Nikolas Schreck. It's an interesting conversation between someone who is completely clueless and two people who are speaking on a level clearly 10 stories above his head. Now, don't get me wrong, there are things said here that I object to. Nikolas is going to say that homosexuality is unnatural and therefore wrong, and that's just idiotic, even if it's just 1989. It's also very hypocritical, and even Larson can figure that one out. At least I think so. He could have made quite a gotcha out of it. Well, you can all listen for yourselves.
Es ist
let's come back to that.
As most historians would.
Well, that's not entirely accurate, sir. Let's get back. Let's get back to the.
Well, it is quite accurate if you want to speak about that.
Let's get back to where the whole thing started. Okay. Let's get some facts straight here. And I'm asking you, Zeena, truly Christian, and they're not Christians.
So that just becomes a semantic problem.
Yeah, can you be a Satanist and not truly be a Satanist?
It's a problem of semantics, as I said. You can say you're a Martian. Well, what does that mean? Satanism is a very broad-based word. To be a member of the Church of Satan is another thing. If I say Bob Larson represents Christianity, therefore does Bob Larson represent Jim Jones and Jim Baker and Jimmy Swaggart and Charles Manson, other people who have called themselves Christians? So you understand the problem. It's a question of semantics and definition.
Okay, let's talk about the church for a minute, because there's so much that I would know and take for granted, and certainly you would know much more and take for granted, that the average person has no understanding of. It is a church. It takes that moniker. It presumes that position. Now, when we think of a church, we think of weddings, we think of funerals, we think of ceremonies of worship, of its views on everything from medical treatment to
those are all activities that go under the umbrella of the
let's
Church of
find
Satan.
out what goes on in the Church of Satan.
Well, one of the main misconceptions is that the Church of Satan is a physical building where black-robed people come to congregate. The Church of Satan is an idea more than a building. It is a large network of people internationally who are committed to the ideas of Satanism. We don't all get together and have bingo games and raffles like Christian churches do to keep everyone feeling like they're part of one big happy family.
I have to jump in on you now. I don't approve of bingo games.
No, I
and
didn't
raffles
say that you did, but you
and
understand.
I don't think that's truly representational of the legitimate activities of Christianity.
Okay then, if you can say that, most of what you are defining as Satanism is not part of what we would define as legitimate Satanism, just as I will give you the benefit of the doubt and assume you are a legitimate Christian, and Jim Jones was not a legitimate Christian.
You're a legitimate Satanist.
The Church of Satan represents legitimate Satanism.
And some kid who gets a Slayer album and cuts the head off of a cat is not a legitimate Satanist.
I wouldn't want to be anywhere near him any more than you would.
All right, now let's talk specifically. Marriage. You perform marriages?
Of course.
What is a satanic marriage ceremony like? What do they do? They obviously don't wear white.
They could wear white.
They can wear whatever they
there is no
wear.
dogma or constricting.
And there's no obligation.
Well, what do you do? I mean, like witches have a hand fasting ceremony. Do you have something like that?
Well, we encourage people to decide what they want. If they want a particular type of ceremony, then we'll help them write it. But there is no steadfast, hard and solid.
The proper use of black magic is to find out what will work for you personally and devise a ritual that will fulfill your archetypal desires in a way appropriate to you. A ritual that would work for Bob Larson to get what he wants out of the world isn't going to work for the next person.
Excuse me, you said black magic. You just let that roll off your tongue like, hey,
easily.
A black magic ceremony for Satan.
Black magic.
If it is growing, if it is clawing, and wants to get out, then let it come out. Your memory's fading, your eyes are like rocks, and I can see you on the floor of your bar, Oh, you got answers in every warning, electric circuit, and that's all there is. So now you're leaving, I'm not that impressed. Oh, they will comment on the way that I dress. If I could be so cruel to confess right now, that if you built them to look just like you, then here's the irony, no one will know if it's tomorrow or today that you go, you go, you go. If it is growing, if it is growing.
And again, it's a question of semantics. I would define as the use of will and ritual combined to create change in the world without any restraint on what that change might be. No hypocritical pretending that we are appealing to a higher force.
Well, have you been to a satanic marriage? I mean, have they ceremony?
Sure.
What was it like?
I've conducted them.
You married people?
Sure.
In the name of Satan?
If you want to use that terminology, yeah.
What did they
it would
do?
be a
I mean,
satanic.
Well,
It varies.
What I'm
Each
trying to-
marriage
We've all
is different.
seen Christian wedding ceremonies.
Right.
So we know the philosophical frame of reference in which that occurs, but we don't know philosophically what's happening.
Well, a satanic marriage is usually they're considerably smaller, more intimate, and because you have a gathering of people who are completely for you, and each one is different from the other. We don't have a set rule as to what the marriage will
Unlike the
consist of.
Christian church that has an assembly line idea, a certain dogma is read, two people agree to it, you are now part of the Christian community in marriage. We feel that each individual should form a union with whoever they wish to.
But of course, Nikolas, that's because in Christianity there is a prior philosophical commitment as to what marriage represents. And so what I'm saying
marriage
is...
to us, to Satanism in brief, marriage represents what you want it to represent. We believe each individual is entitled to decide what their life should consist of. There is no bond to any supernatural entity.
And even
so you
decide if you even want to be married
Marriage
at all.
is not mandatory, nor is... Nothing is mandatory.
Would you marry two lesbians?
I personally do not believe that homosexuality is a natural practice any more than you do. And I don't...
Would you marry them if they thought it was and wanted to be? I mean, Anton LaVey, the Satanic Bible certainly condones
They would
it.
certainly be able to marry themselves and consider themselves married.
Well, it may sound like an absurd question, but suppose Joe wants to marry his golden retriever. If we're all animals, I mean, can Joe conceivably marry his dog?
Speaking for the Werewolf Order, which is my organization in particular, we do not feel that homosexuality is a healthy or natural or safe or hygienic practice.
But you're contradicting Anton in the Satanic Bible.
No. What I would agree with him in this sense, that I do not prescribe any moral onus against it. What I'm saying is do whatever you want to do, but accept the consequences that come with it. And
well, you're not answering the question about the golden retriever, and I'm not...
No, I don't. I believe bestiality is as repugnant to me as it is to you, but not for moral reasons, but because of natural reasons.
Wait, but earlier you said we're all animals. I mean, an animal's an animal.
Well,
so what's the difference?
Animals don't breed.
Wouldn't mate with a Siamese cat.
Yeah, only humans are so neurotic that they break the natural law.
Without getting too intellectual here, you do have some speciation, differentiation.
See, that's something
that in effect you're not willing to call morals, but in effect places you as a human animal on a higher rung of evolution's ladder, giving you certain priorities over what you do to the rest.
No, absolutely not. In fact, I believe that animals should be protected by humans, as it is our duty as the inheritors of the earth to protect the ecology, to protect wildlife, and satanic ecology is forefront on our agenda.
Voulu venir ici, là où je venais souvent avec mes amis. Je te dis, fais attention si nous allons dans cet endroit. Je reverrai ce garçon, mon flirt d'autrefois. Avant la bagarre, je te préviens. Avant la bagarre, réfléchis bien, car il est bien plus grand que toi. Reste assis, non, non, n'y va pas, n'y va pas. Fais pas peur, c'est toi le seul maintenant que j'ai dans mon cœur. Avant la bagarre, je te préviens. Avant la bagarre, réfléchis bien, car il est bien plus grand que toi. Reste assis, non, non, n'y va pas, n'y va pas. Je n'aime pas ton regard, je sens bien que ça va chauffer. Maintenant il est trop tard pour vous séparer. Voici la bagarre que tu cherchais. Pendant la bagarre, moi je m'en vais. Que le vainqueur de ce combat chez moi, que le vainqueur de ce combat téléphone demain chez moi.
We need to protect the earth that we live on and our natural environment.
Let's talk about a worship service. Okay, you have sexual rituals, compassionate rituals, and destructive rituals.
And many more. Those are three.
Well, those are the three main ones Anton talks about.
In
now,
the Satanic Bible.
Zeena, these are the three put forth in the Satanic Bible. Describe them. Destruction ritual. What is a destruction ritual?
Well, we believe in vengeance. We don't believe in turning the other cheek. You keep turning the other cheek and you run out of cheeks. We feel that if you are wronged in some way, that you take it out with the person responsible, whether that's directly or indirectly, whether that's actually going to the person and addressing the problem or the issue specifically, or whether it's working it out through ritual.
May I ask, before you go on, have you never had an experience in your life, I certainly have, where I felt I was wronged by someone else, only as I matured later in life to discover, in fact, that in that circumstance I was the one who was wrong, and it was my own selfish ego that placed upon it the imprimatur of saying I was wrong. So that, but what I'm saying is, if you claim the right to get even with anyone at any time, what if you're wrong? What if you do a destruction ritual?
Well, how do you know that you were wrong?
And what's wrong with your selfish ego? I would think your selfish ego is a healthier gauge of reality than some moral system found
I would think it's very blinding, because in fact,
by instinct,
we're getting back to our animal natures. We are beasts, and we decide from gut instinct whether we have been wronged or not.
Excuse me, you've never done anything wrong and thought you were right?
Let's back up even further. Maybe if what you were experiencing was some youthful ego thing that you think you were wrong, what about infants that are passed from one relative to another and they're fine and they get to one person and they just start screaming and there's something there that's wrong and an infant can sense it. Is that infant reacting wrong? Is that a wrong reaction? Well, I would say that on a much more simplistic level, that is the way we react. If we instinctively feel that something's not right, we have to go by gut intuition.
What if you're wrong?
What is wrong and right? And in our case, we are making up our reality. We decide what's right and wrong. You are letting the Bible or Jesus Christ or whatever God may be
even
decide.
Common sense. I mean, even leaving God out of it to suggest that you can make up your own reality. My goodness, that's what they did in Tiananmen Square. That's what they did in Germany in 1933. I mean,
and that's what they're doing in America.
These are examples of people who created their own reality.
Everyone creates their own reality. The thing is, you speak for a consensus of reality which is acceptable. We speak for one which at this point in history is not acceptable. Well, so it's just a question of who manipulates the media, who has the most money to put their reality forth.
Would you pardon me saying that I find a world in which your ability to conjure your own reality as you perceive it to be a very frightening world for people like me, because you see, I'm guided by some codified rules that tell me what is right and wrong. In your world, I'm not so sure I would feel very safe.
They isolate their herds and raise their people.
Now what can you tell me? And what can you say that would make him defensive?
you would see that's your problem. You have in the satanic world of the future, Christian churches will be allowed to continue because they pose no threat to us. We don't need Christianity. Christianity needs us.
Sure.
So we'll let it.
Sure. Tell that to the Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto. Why, we're not going to put you in gas ovens. We're not going to kill you. We just want you to wear an armband.
No, I'm not saying that.
I mean, we just want you.
No. I'm not saying I'm a humanitarian. Don't try to whitewash me.
Hitler created a reality. Was it evil?
Hitler was a masterful black magician, of course. He created a reality. Was it evil? I'm telling you that I don't believe in good and evil, and nor can anyone decide what is good and evil. It's all based on historical and cultural values. In my point of view, the Christian religion is evil, in quotes, because it is negative.
Nikolas, I'm not a Jewish survivor of Buchenwald sitting here with a number tattooed on my arm. If I were, well, frankly, I'd be incensed. I'd be outraged that you suggest.
Well, they are incensed and outraged. They're incensed and outraged.
You're not willing to say Hitler was evil.
Absolutely not, because I'm not going to bow down to your level of good and evil. That's so primitive.
Pardon?
I'm telling the human race.
What purpose would that serve? You want us to give you these lines.
I'm telling you, you have to decide for yourself.
No. I'm asking for parrots.
You want rules.
No, you do.
You want rules.
No, I'm asking you just a fundamental question, a social colloquy in regards to how human beings treat one another.
100 years ago, Napoleon was considered the devil incarnate, the most evil person who ever lived. Now he's forgotten. Everything changes with cultural tides. Morals change with the weather. Well, you can't say something is good or evil. You can only look at human behavior from a realistic perspective.
Well,
so if you really want to look at what is evil, the book that you have sitting right there is probably the prescription for more
Bible?
evil.
The Holy Bible.
That's right.
And if you can tell me this is untrue, tell me.
Throughout history.
Exactly.
In the name of
more people have died because of the Christian Church in the past 2,000 years of its dominance.
With the Spanish Inquisition.
Well, hang on. You got off Hitler here. You sidestepped Hitler.
No, let's talk about Hitler. Whatever you want to talk about.
We'll talk about this in a second.
Let's talk about the Bible. Let's talk about Hitler. Let's talk about everything.
I don't want to misquote you. In fairness to you,
it's interesting. Why do we focus so much on Hitler?
Why are you so fascinated with sex and
I think
Hitler?
this is very
I'm not
interesting.
fascinated with sex.
But these are the
I'm not
things
fascinated with Hitler. No, I'm not.
Because you keep bringing up
no.
the Holocaust and the survival.
I'm sorry, but those types of ad hominem arguments really don't make it in a debate. Okay, I mean that's that's intellectually dishonest, and you're a brilliant man, and even you know that.
What do you want to get at then? What's the issue of our debate?
The issue is, and I'm wanting to be fair to you. I'm not wanting to put words in your mouth or misquote you. You're saying, are you then saying that what Hitler did to 6 million Jews cannot be morally quantified and called evil? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely not, nor can any act of any human being or animal be judged good or evil.
As the snow flies on a cold and gray Chicago morning, a poor little baby child is born in the ghetto. And his mama cries, because if there's one thing that she don't need, it's another hungry mouth to feed in the ghetto. People, don't you understand? The Chinese are here in hand. He'll grow to be an angry young man someday. Take a look at you and me. Are we too blind to see? Do we simply turn our heads and look the other way? Well, the world turns, and the hungry little boy with the runny nose plays in the street as the cold wind blows in the ghetto. And his hunger burns So he starts to roam the streets at night, and he learns how to steal, and he learns how to fight in the ghetto. Then one night in desperation, the young man breaks away. He buys a gun and he steals a car, tries to run but he don't get far, and his mama cries. So the crowd get around, an angry young man face down in the street with a gun in his hand in the ghetto. And as her young man died, on a golden gray Chicago morning, another little baby child is born in the ghetto. And his mama cried.
There is no such thing as good or evil.
Yes, I agree with that, because if you look at every war, no matter whether it was the Third Reich or whether it was the Spanish Inquisition or any war, any movement has always caused bloodshed.
Whoever won the war decided what evil was.
And then the victors wrote history. So you always have to keep that in mind.
If King George had won the American Revolution, George Washington would be remembered as one of the great evil tyrants of all time. History decides what is good and evil.
But now
so if Hitler had won?
If Hitler had won, obviously, your school books would say Hitler was good, everything else is evil. It's so relative that why can't the human race step out of this primitive argument of good and evil?
6 million corpses.
What about Stalin and 10 million Polish?
Let's talk about
What about the Ukrainians?
Sure.
Why is there
Why
is there only one Holocaust, one evil?
Was Stalin?
What about in El Salvador? There are millions of people dying right now.
Slaughtering of the Ukrainians through famine a malicious act of evil?
There's no such thing as evil. It was a typical act of a human being. And if you want to look at human history from the day that we came from the primordial swamp that creation began in, what you're calling evil is part of human nature.
That's part of evolution also.
How many? Now, what about the millions of people who were killed in Europe, accused of being witches, children and women burnt at the stake, while crowds of good, pious Christians gathered around and watched them burn for a Sunday celebration?
I will call that evil.
I won't call it evil. I'll say it's human nature.
I will call it evil, and I will take it a step further to say that it was philosophically the antithesis and totally inconsistent with what the Bible teaches.
Well, maybe the problem is...
Now, hang on. What Nazism did to the Jews was philosophically consistent with the occult Aryan ideas of Hitler. So what I'm saying is...
Well, that's what you're deciding because you're a Christian in 1989. The Christian church rulership in the 1600s would think you were a heretic for saying such things. So all I'm telling you is morality is a relative issue, and nobody can decide what is good and evil.
Is murder relative?
Murder is absolutely relative. When we sent, when I say we, I mean the American government sent our troops to Vietnam to kill people. Was it evil? Were those good murderers? Are there good murderers if they're wearing a soldier's uniform and bad murderers if they're not?
Would you say that to the mother of Sharon Tate?
Yes, I would say that to the mother of Sharon Tate. In fact,
do you want to let Charlie Manson out of prison?
That's a whole other issue.
Do you? Do you think he deserves to be let out of prison?
Charles Manson, for one thing, I don't believe is guilty of the crimes he's been accused of. But that's a whole other issue.
You're kidding.
Well, how much do you really know
How much do you know about
these
Charles
things that you're
Manson? How
talking
much
about?
do you know about Hitler?
Well,
how much do you know about
now, wait a
anything?
minute. Zeena, Charlie has pretty well made his philosophy known. I mean, he's spoken clearly and openly. And there's no denial on his part of his role in the Tate LaBianca murders, that he sent those people in that house to commit a bloodbath.
Where'd you hear that? I can show you 20 years of quotes.
Are you saying that Charlie Manson is a rational mind? Are you saying this man is not a murderous psychotic? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, yes. It was a Friday, and we had made a date. I only had till Monday, and it was getting late. The big weekend, the biggest one I've ever had. Big weekend, it really made me feel so glad. Just to think that I should chance to meet someone who'd make my life complete. Big weekend, yeah, big weekend. On Saturday together, we lingered in the park, watching monkeys in the zoo, till after it got dark. And later we went calling and had a nice time too. When at last I got you home for a kiss or two. Big weekend, the biggest one I've ever had. Big weekend, it really made me feel so glad. Just to think that I could chance to meet someone who'd make my life complete. Big weekend, yeah, big weekend. We saw a movie Sunday and then went out to eat. On the way we window shopped while walking down the street. And later in a taxi when no one else could see, you gave me another kiss and said that you loved me. Big weekend, the biggest one I've ever had. Big weekend, it really made me feel so glad. Just to think that I could chance to meet someone who'd make my life complete. Big weekend, the biggest one I've ever had. Big weekend.
By your point of view, of course not.
Now, you see, what I find interesting
go ahead.
is my father is now suddenly lumped into these ranks, because all around me I hear now that my father is just like Manson and just like Hitler, and now I'm beginning to question.
No,
you don't.
You don't. Many people
But this
do.
is a common opinion, and now I'm beginning to question why. Why is my father so much like Manson, and why is he considered so much like Hitler, and why is he considered so much like even Rasputin, who completely turned the Russia upside down? And now I'm beginning to realize that maybe there are two sides to every story, and maybe if you examine the other sides that you don't hear about, you learn something that is a little more illuminating.
Zeena, I don't find it terribly surprising that there should be some analogies between your father and people like Rasputin. It seems pretty reasonable to me in terms of the ideology that he set forth. It really is a get yours first, don't look out for the other guy, Machiavellian kind of philosophy.
Well, that's right. But also you were referring to other people in history that I was saying you have to consider both sides of every story.
There's another side to Hitler?
Do you think there's only one side to anything?
Guy killed 6 million people.
And that's all you know, and that's all you have to know.
No, I know much more about Hitler than that, but in terms of determining his moral place in history, I don't have any problem.
Now, we're in the same position.
Moral place? Who determines it? Who has the right to determine what is good and evil?
Well, of course, I would respond from the standpoint of the Christian ethic, but even a humanist sitting in this chair.
I don't like humanists any more than Christians.
You don't like humanists either?
Humanists, you have to understand this once and for all. Christians must know Satanism is not humanism. Humanism is based on Christian ethics and ideas. It just doesn't have Christ. But it has the same appalling ideas about equality, love for everybody, indiscriminate love for all living things, and we oppose those ideas.
Altruism, humanitarianism,
Humanism and Christianity are in bed together. They're the same thing.
Well, the humanists might not appreciate that, but I hear where you're coming from.
Of course they wouldn't. And as far as I'm concerned, there's Satanism, and then there's other people.
Yeah, your father, in the satanic rituals, really puts out some zingers at the witches who want to be white witches. He says there really is no such thing. A witch is a witch is a witch.
That's right. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree. Now there's where I do agree with your father. Yes.
I think you would find that you do agree on a lot of principles with the satanic philosophy if you clearly understood and looked at it. We are saying that the
well, I don't know if I'd carry that far.
In the sense that the act of manipulating and using the will and using ritual to create change is, by any definition, satanic. And anyone who does that is at least an ipso facto Satanist. So these witches that say they're good witches, white witches, nice witches, are as hypocritical as a Christian to me.
Your father also says in the Satanic Witch, quote, of psychics who say, God gave me the gift. These people are playing the devil's game, but refusing to use the devil's name.
My baby never told me exactly how I stand. She even tries to scold me when I hold her little hand. My baby may be bashful, my baby may be shy, but I'm happy, oh so happy, and I'll tell you why. Oh, I know my baby loves me, I can tell my baby loves me, oh, there ain't no maybe in my baby's eyes. And even though she don't express it, she might just as well confess it, for there ain't no maybe in my baby's eyes. We sit each evening and never speak. I wish each evening could last a week. For I know my baby loves me, I can tell my baby loves me, for there ain't no maybe in my baby's eyes. Although our conversation is mostly just hello, that certain hesitation every time I start to go, her little way of saying that little word goodbye makes me happy, oh so happy, and here's just why. Oh no, my baby loves me, I can tell my baby loves me, for there ain't no maybe in my baby's eyes. And even though she don't express it, she might just as well confess it, for there ain't no maybe in my baby's eyes. We sit each evening, never speak, and I wish each evening could last a week. Oh no, my baby loves me, I can tell my baby loves me, for there ain't no maybe in my baby's eyes. Oh no, my baby loves me, I can tell my baby loves me, for there ain't no maybe in my baby's eyes. Even though she don't express it, she might just as well confess it, for there ain't no maybe in my baby's eyes. We sit each evening and never speak, and I wish each evening could last a week. For I know my baby loves me, I can tell my baby loves me, for there ain't no maybe in my baby's eyes.
Well, that's right. Wouldn't you consider any form of divination or faith healing or
divination is biblically forbidden. I would consider it to be satanic.
So we would say that anything that would fall under that category would be considered satanic. And it's not just us. I mean, this has been throughout history. And predating Christianity, there have always been those who have veered from the mainstream, whatever that mainstream was, who have gone out in the wilderness and built shacks to live in, to be away from the mainstream and live their own lives the way they feel they ought to.
Well, the one thing I can say, you Satanists are certainly more honest than most witches when it comes to acknowledging the authenticity, the reality of what you're doing.
We're not, as I was saying, you might not like what we have to say, but we are honest. I mean, we don't claim to be anything that we aren't.
Well, speaking of honesty, before we get off Charlie Manson, do you want to talk about what happened August 8, 1988 in San Francisco?
Well, I wrote a book called The Manson File, and I've interviewed Charles Manson.
I want to talk about the
I know the
ritual you held in the theater.
Yeah. Nikolas coordinated that.
Yeah. And when the movie showed...
Let me explain what happened. The Other Side of Madness, a film that was made in 1970, an exploitation film, was shown. And of course, as everyone has reported in the national media, the audience cheered during the murder sequence.
Well, this is a bloody murder sequence. I mean, this was when Sharon Tate's body is slit open and her child, her unborn child, is removed. And
no, that didn't happen, but that's a fine point. But yes, it was a bloody murder.
The audience cheered. Nikolas...
Have you been to the Friday the 13th movie?
Unfortunately, but Nikolas, you're sitting there so calm.
What do you want me to do? Cry? What do you want me to do? Have remorse and break down in tears?
This is what I find interesting.
What is the proper reaction?
You won't say that Hitler is evil. You sit there calmly. You want us...
What do you want? What's the right thing to do from the Christian point of view? Should I moan and whine about it?
Isn't this what you expect
We're
of
looking at
us?
human nature. If you can't accept it, that's your problem. I can.
Murder is always part of human nature.
Is it wrong? Is it wrong? Is it wrong to murder?
Wrong?
Are you going to change it?
Is it wrong to murder?
Is it
Zeena,
wrong?
is it wrong to murder?
As it says in the Satanic Bible, can you love the blood-splashed jaws that rend you limb from limb? Is that wrong? Can you love and feel...
You haven't answered me. Is it wrong to murder?
Depends on the circumstances.
No, you answer the question. Is it wrong to murder?
What is wrong? Murder is part of life.
We're telling you, we don't believe in good, evil, right, wrong dichotomy. If I come at you and you kill me in self-defense, is it wrong? Should you sacrifice yourself?
No, wait a minute.
Murder can't be...
That's not murder.
Murder's no more wrong. Wait, there, you're deciding.
Murder is no more wrong than what?
You're deciding what murder is.
What is it then? Define everything if you want to debate it.
All I'm saying is there always has been
we got
murder.
6,000 years of human history to define what murder is.
That's right. So how are we
Killing is a part
here?
of animal behavior. Humans do it
more than
others.
I don't really believe that I would need to worry about walking down a dark alley and being followed by either of you with a gun in your pocket. But what you have just said, let me finish. What you have just said, articulated to the masses, particularly in a dysfunctional society where people are filled with all types of anger and rage because of past abuses, what you're really doing, I think, is potentially lighting a fuse. I'm not worried that you're going to pull a gun out of your pocket and shoot me in front of these cameras, but I don't know that somebody else might not do that because of what you said. You're not willing to...
It's very simple.
The homeless you don't want to shelter?
No, I don't want to shelter people who can't take care of themselves. Why can't they?
You shelter the
hungry, the starving, you don't want to
more.
Zeena, go ahead, Zeena. What were you saying?
That produces more of the same. There has to be some change. If you look at the animal kingdom, how is the animal kingdom able to survive? There is no such thing as homeless.
Back to social Darwinism again. In the animal kingdom, you preserve what is strong.
Hang on.
You give more food to the stronger animal.
Until humans
you don't feed the weaker one.
I'm trying to...
There's no welfare in the animal
Nicholas, I'm trying to remain as academically detached as I possibly can.
It's not an academically detached question.
But what you're saying is so absolutely disgustingly outrageous. Now, just wait a minute. Let me...
To me, it's disgustingly outrageous that you would help these weak people who are draining our resources, who are causing so many problems. We could be doing positive things in the world.
Zeena, I want to ask
These weaklings are taking away all of our energy and resources. And you've decided to help them. That's disgusting to me.
You've never been to a refugee camp.
Why would I possibly want to go to a refugee camp?
Well, Zeena, I've been
You have
there.
this masochistic love for weakness.
And what do you think that'll gain you?
Because women have more sensitive natures. I just want to make sure it isn't this firm resolve of this man who's overdue.
If you're going to get a soft reaction from me because I'm a woman, then you won't.
If you were in an Ethiopian famine camp,
what would I be doing there?
Isn't that the problem of the Ethiopian government, to take care of their own people? Why should we be taking care of them?
No, I tell you what it's the problem of. It's the problem of a communist totalitarian ideology in the Mengistu government that put those people in a place, a philosophy, a philosophy of dialectical materialism, a communist me-first philosophy that is not far from what you said.
See,
now, wait. Let's get back to the refugee camp.
Okay, now...
I want to ask Zeena, you don't want to feed starving people. You want them to die. That's what you're telling me.
No, I like your salesman technique of putting words in people's mouth.
Then you speak for yourself.
Did I ever say I want them to die? I'm saying, why do they exist in the first place?
Would you feed them?
Why would they be allowed to
Would you raise money? Would you do what you could to collect the resources to feed them?
Would a wolf raise money to collect resources
for the whelps of the land?
A monkey in the tree?
Just yes or no, would you?
I'm using analogies. No, of course I wouldn't. If I did that, wouldn't they become more and more dependent on me and less dependent on themselves?
let's have some fun. This beat is sick. I wanna take a ride on your disco stick. I wanna kiss you, but if I do, then I might miss you, babe. It's complicated and stupid. Got my ass squeezed by sexy Cupid. Guess he wants to play. I love game. Let's play a love game. Do you want love? Do you want pain? When you win that game. Love game. Let's play a love game. Do you want love or you want pain when you win that game? Love game. I'm on a mission, and it involves some heavy touching, yeah. You've indicated your interest. I'm educated in sexes, and now I want it bad. I love game. Hold me and love me. Let's play a love game. Do you want love or you want pain when you win that game? Know the love game. Let's play a love game. Do you want love or you want pain when you win that game? Know the love game. Let's play a love game. Do you want love or you want pain when you win that game? Know the love game. Love game. Love game.
No, not
Oh, why is
necessarily.
Well, that hasn't been proven yet.
No,
so-
not
Well,
necessarily.
if you look at the welfare state we have and the people who are on welfare,
What are
isn't
they
it
doing
true
to
that there are
improve their lot?
generations of
Nothing.
there are generations of welfare recipients?
I
It's not
understand
like
that.
it's not like just a
No,
temporary thing.
no one's defending welfare.
Well, but it's all the
Here's-
same
look,
time.
But
to
we're
me,
talking about
you
people.
just-
No. We're not talking about either lazy people or incompetent people.
Incompetent people.
No,
Yes, we are.
sir.
The Ethiopian government is incompetent.
But the people who suffer the starvation did
Why
not.
do we have a responsibility to help them unless we believe this nonsense in the Bible?
Because they're-
if we're realists, we
Because they're
don't
human
have that.
beings. Because they feel pain. Because they suffer. Because they hurt. Is not the hurt and pain
That
of
isn't
another.
enough. That isn't enough reason.
Does
for
not the
a-
hurt and suffering of another human being at all touch your-
If the human being is worthy
So
of
what
my
you're-
attention, I love people who are worthy of my love. That's very few.
And what you're saying
People
is
who are strong, I admire them. I'll help them. I won't help people who are weak.
And
Okay.
what you're saying is we have to take the responsibility of other people's actions upon ourselves when we've done nothing, absolutely nothing, to have that result. We didn't do anything to
Does that
promote.
matter? They hurt. I mean, they're in pain. Does it matter? Does it matter? They hurt. I mean, you hurt. You call yourself an animal, but you hurt. You cut your finger. You bleed. You
And we take care
trip
of
and
it.
fall
We
and
take
break
care
your
of it.
leg.
Where's the social agency that helps hurt Satanists? It doesn't exist. We help ourselves. And we encourage the same kind of self-discipline.
Well, you go to
and
the same
fortitude.
hospitals I can
And
go
let me
to.
tell you something. When I go to a hospital, they see I'm dressed in black. They look at what they call occult symbolism, and they say, oh, you're a Satanist. I get treated last. That's because
Well, you've chosen to wear the
and I'm proud of it. I'm not complaining. I'm
And
saying,
why don't they
look
say,
at the reality
you're
of the
wearing
world.
a camel hair blazer. You're a Christian. Why should we?
I wouldn't.
I'm not asking
I
for
wouldn't
help.
treat you last.
Okay, but I'm telling you
I wouldn't
that's
treat
the
you
way the
last.
world is.
Standard
We don't look for help. Why should we give help to others?
This is Zeena. This is your father's book, the Satanic Bible. I mean, this is it. This is the diatribe of the devil that has brought together thousands of people in your belief system. I dip my forefinger in the watery blood of your impotent, mad Redeemer and write over his thorn-torn brow, the true Prince of evil.
Isn't that poetic?
Do you believe that, Zeena?
And aren't you taking it a bit out of context?
I'm reading it. I mean, I'm reading it.
Well,
okay. Hand me that Holy Bible, and I'll read you something too.
Zeena, you know what I'm reading. I mean, you know the book. It's page 30
our
right
standard,
here.
Jesus is the true Prince of Evil.
Will you let me read something from my own book?
Well, let me read it first.
Oh,
okay?
and why is that?
You don't want to. I'm reading.
Why can't I choose things to read as you would choose things from your book carefully?
Because I'm the person conducting the interview right now.
Well, maybe we should interview you.
Survival of the fittest.
I gaze into the glassy eye of your fearsome Jehovah.
Right.
I pluck him by the beard. I uplift a broad axe and split open his worm-eaten skull.
Right.
Did you know who wrote that?
You tell me.
You know who Ragnar
No, I don't.
Redbeard is?
Who?
Ragnar Redbeard?
No, yes, Redbeard, yes. He wrote this. Well, your father's re-quoted it here.
Okay.
Whatever the case.
I don't know if any of you saw any similarities between the values of the Satanists and Ayn Rand objectivism. Did you catch it? It really puzzled me. It seems that those values are shared by much of Christianity's cheerleaders, like the teabaggers. I'm not sure what team Bob Larson is really on. I tend to think that he gives lip service to the church's dedication to helping the poor. I really do. So next week we're going to finish up with these Satanists. Now personally, I am doing quite well. That last stay in the hospital last week really did me some noticeable good. If you didn't know, I'm suffering mostly from kidney disease. My body can't make enough blood for me to function very well. I started getting some hormone treatments though, and after 2 of them, I really feel a lot better. I actually ran a little bit yesterday. I didn't go running, poo on that, but I did run for about 10 minutes, and it actually felt good, and overall, that's how I feel. So, anyway, thanks to everyone who listens, and thanks to everyone who's been sending me kind messages. Also, thanks to all the people commenting on my Noah's Ark video on YouTube. Kind of makes me feel connected, you know, even if they are calling me a dried up old cunt. See for yourselves, and I'll see you next time.